Arnold Dela Cruz thought she had found love in Omar al-Rashid, the wealthy patient who made her believe dreams could come true in Dubai. But when Layla al-Rashid, his elegant and calculating wife, discovered the forbidden videos that exposed their affair, passion turned to terror. Within days, the devoted nurse vanished without a trace, leaving behind only secrets, blood, and a phone filled with evidence that would destroy them all. Arnold Dela Cruz had come to Dubai chasing stability, not love. She was 36, a dedicated Filipina nurse working at Al Noor Private Hospital, where wealthy patients demanded quiet professionalism and absolute discretion. Her life was predictable: morning shifts, late nights, long calls to her family back home in the Philippines. There were no surprises until the day Omar al-Rashid, a 42-year-old Emirati businessman, was admitted after a high-speed car accident. His injuries were not life-threatening, but his recovery required constant care, and Arnold was assigned as his private nurse. From the first moment she met him, she noticed his aura of power. Even in pain, he carried himself with quiet authority, and the hospital staff treated him with visible deference. His family name was well known in Dubai's business circles, tied to real estate, construction, and oil ventures. Arnold was instructed to give him the best care possible: no mistakes, no delays, no gossip. She followed every order with precision. But over time, the professional line began to blur. Omar was charming in a way Arnold wasn't used to. He thanked her after every shift, complimented her patience, and asked about her life. She resisted at first, uncomfortable with the attention, but his vulnerability drew her closer. He often spoke about the loneliness of being surrounded by people who wanted his wealth, not his heart. For Arnold, who had spent years feeling invisible, his attention felt intoxicating. Each day, their conversations stretched longer. She began to look forward to seeing him, dressing a little differently, staying a little longer after her shift. When Omar was discharged, he insisted Arnold continue his care at home. The hospital arranged it through private channels, and Arnold started visiting his penthouse every evening. At first, everything stayed professional: bandage changes, medication, follow-ups. But the air between them carried an unspoken attraction that grew stronger with every visit. Soon, work boundaries gave way to stolen moments. Their secret affair began quietly, hidden behind the glass walls of a luxury apartment overlooking the city. Omar's wife, Layla al-Rashid, was a woman of grace and control, coming from one of the wealthiest families in Abu Dhabi. She had married Omar not out of love but for status. Their union was more of an alliance than a romance. Layla spent most of her time traveling for charity projects, leaving Omar alone for long stretches. Arnold entered his life during one of those absences, filling the emptiness Layla's distance had created. What started as compassion turned into obsession. Omar bought Arnold expensive gifts: jewelry, handbags, perfume. He told her she was different from anyone he had ever met. She believed him completely. The nurse who once counted every dirham to send home now dined in private restaurants, wore designer clothes, and felt like she finally belonged somewhere. For the first time in her life, she felt seen, valued, and loved. Yet, somewhere deep down, she knew their relationship was fragile, built on secrecy and lies. Their private world existed in shadows. Omar was cautious, but Arnold wanted to capture their happiness. She began recording short videos of their time together on his phone. Little moments she thought were harmless. In her mind, it was a way to preserve their love in case fate ever separated them. Omar didn't protest. He laughed it off, unaware those videos would one day destroy them both. Outside their affair, Arnold's co-workers noticed subtle changes in her. She came to work glowing, distracted, humming quietly under her breath. When asked about it, she brushed off the questions. No one suspected the truth that the kind, devoted nurse was entangled with a married man from one of Dubai's most influential families. At night, when the city lights shimmered across the desert sky, Arnold would lie in Omar's arms and imagine a future together. He had promised her everything: a house, security, a new life. She believed him, but she didn't understand the world she had stepped into. A world where appearances mattered more than feelings, and betrayal was punished without mercy. The affair grew bolder with time. Omar arranged weekend getaways under fake names, Arnold began to think she had truly won his heart. But in Dubai, secrets have a way of surfacing, no matter how carefully they are buried. And as their passion deepened, so did the danger around them. Hidden in the shadows of luxury and lies, a quiet storm was building, one that would soon tear their perfect illusion apart. The weeks after Omar's recovery brought a new rhythm to their affair. Arnold no longer felt like a visitor in his life. She felt like she belonged there. She had her own key to his private apartment, her clothes in the closet, her perfume on his nightstand. Every evening after her shift, she slipped into that secret world where Omar became someone softer, more human, away from the demands of wealth and family. For Arnold, this was love in its purest form. But for Omar, it was a dangerous indulgence that he couldn't control. He often told her he would leave Layla, but his actions told a different story. Whenever Arnold asked when that would happen, he changed the subject, reminding her of how complicated his life was. She accepted his excuses because she was terrified of losing him. What she didn't realize was that Omar's fear wasn't of losing her, it was of being exposed. His reputation and his family's name were everything. The thought of scandal terrified him more than anything else. Arnold's love grew desperate. She started to demand more attention, more commitment, and more time. When Omar began canceling meetings and taking longer to reply, she felt panic rising in her chest. To her, their love was real and worth any risk. To him, it was a secret that had already gone too far. But he couldn't let go. Each time he saw her, he felt alive in a way he hadn't for years. Arnold often used Omar's phone to take pictures and record short clips. It started as playful moments, laughing, cooking, or lying together, but soon the videos became intimate and risky. She liked capturing proof of their bond, something she could replay when he wasn't there. Omar warned her once that his phone wasn't safe, that Layla sometimes used it when he wasn't around. But Arnold brushed off the concern. She trusted that their secret was safe. She had no idea how wrong she was. One evening, Omar returned home distracted. His driver had mentioned that Layla's trip to Europe was ending earlier than expected. He didn't tell Arnold. He didn't want to worry her. But deep down, fear started creeping into his mind. He deleted a few files, hid some messages, and made sure to move certain videos into a private folder on his phone. Yet in his exhaustion, he forgot one small but fatal detail: the folder was still accessible through the gallery. Layla arrived unannounced 2 nights later. Omar was at a meeting, and his phone was charging beside the bed. She went through it casually, planning to call their driver, but her finger brushed across a folder labeled simply with a date. Inside were dozens of videos, clips that began innocently and then became explicit. Her husband's voice, her husband's body, his words whispered to another woman. For a long time, she didn't move. She watched every second in silence, her expression blank, her mind cold and sharp. Layla was not the kind of woman who shouted or cried. She had been raised in a world where control was everything, where a public scandal could destroy not only her marriage, but her entire family's reputation. She sat there for hours, calculating what to do. Each video she watched didn't just show infidelity, it showed humiliation. A foreign nurse, in her husband's arms, in her home, wearing his gifts. The anger didn't explode. It froze, turning into something far more dangerous. When Omar returned, Layla acted as if nothing had happened. She smiled, greeted him, and went to bed early. But that night, she didn't sleep. She stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, planning every detail of what she would do next. Arnel, unaware of the storm she had unleashed, continued her routine. She texted Omar goodnight, sent him hearts, and dreamed about their next meeting. She thought their love had survived every challenge. She didn't know that Layla had already begun setting her plan in motion quietly, efficiently, and without mercy. The phone that once held their love had now become a weapon. A single mistake had shattered the illusion of safety. For Omar, the secret he had tried to protect was now a ticking bomb in the hands of a woman who had everything to lose. For Arnold, the man she trusted most had unknowingly placed her life in the path of destruction. The balance of their hidden world was gone, and soon, everything they built in the shadows would come crashing down in the blinding light of revenge. Days passed, and Arnold grew restless. Omar had stopped calling. His messages became fewer, shorter, colder. He claimed he was busy with work, tied up in meetings, exhausted. At first, Arnold believed him, but after a week of silence, fear began to twist inside her. Something was wrong. He had never ignored her like this before. She went to their apartment, the one that had once been filled with laughter and affection. The door was locked, the curtains drawn. It felt lifeless, abandoned, as if the place itself had erased all trace of their time together. Arnold stood in the hallway for minutes, staring at the door, trying to make sense of what was happening. She called him again and again, but every attempt went straight to voicemail. His phone was either switched off or blocked her number. The silence was unbearable. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't focus on her patients. Her co-workers noticed her pale face and trembling hands, but she brushed them off, pretending to be fine. Inside, she was unraveling. Omar, meanwhile, was fighting his own private nightmare. Layla had confronted him days earlier in their living room, showing him the videos. There was no yelling, no chaos, just quiet, deadly calm. She gave him a choice: take care of the situation or she would. He knew what she meant. In their world, family honor mattered more than morality. Scandal was death. Layla didn't want divorce or explanation. She wanted the problem erased. And Omar, terrified of what she was capable of, agreed to do whatever it took. He reached out to Arnold under the guise of wanting to talk things through. His message was kind, almost apologetic. He asked to meet her one last time at the apartment where everything had started. Arnold's heart leapt with hope. She believed he was finally ready to make things right. That night, she dressed carefully, simple makeup, a light dress, her favorite perfume, and the small gold bracelet he had given her. She left her phone on the bed, intending to call her family afterward. It would be the last night anyone ever saw her alive. That the next morning, she didn't show up for her hospital shift. Her supervisor called repeatedly, but there was no answer. Her friends assumed she was sick or had taken a day off. By evening, worry turned to panic. When she missed another shift, her supervisor contacted the police. The officers traced her residence. Everything inside was untouched. Her bag, ID, and documents were still there. Her phone remained on the bed, showing a single unread message from Omar. Detectives began to piece together her final steps. Security footage showed Arnold entering the apartment building late that night, carrying a small handbag. But what sent chills through investigators was the fact that no footage showed her leaving. It was as if she had vanished inside. When they searched the apartment, they found it spotless, and naturally so. The air smelled of bleach. There were no fingerprints except Omar's and Arnold's, and the bedsheets were freshly changed. Yet, in the corner beneath the carpet, a faint brown stain caught their attention. Testing later confirmed it was blood. Arnold's blood. Omar played the role of the grieving man well. He told police that she had been emotionally unstable, that she had been obsessed with him and had threatened to harm herself when he ended things. His story seemed rehearsed, but without a body, investigators had little to go on. Layla, calm and poised, provided an alibi that placed her at a charity dinner the entire evening. She smiled politely when asked about her husband's affair, saying she knew nothing about it. Weeks turned into months. The case remained open, but without progress. Arnold's friends held small vigils, hoping for answers. But hope faded quickly in a city where the powerful were untouchable. Her family back home begged for help, sending letters to the embassy. But all they received were formal responses and condolences. Still, something in the story didn't add up. The police couldn't shake the feeling that Omar was hiding something. There were gaps in his timeline, inconsistencies in his statements, and a visible tension every time Layla's name came up. Though the couple appeared united, detectives sensed the quiet hostility beneath their polished smiles. What they didn't yet know was that the truth was buried literally, and that the walls of Dubai's glittering luxury were about to crack open under the weight of one woman's disappearance, Omar. And Layla's life returned to its perfect fawade, or so it seemed. They attended events together, their smiles practiced and flawless, their gestures perfectly synchronized. The photographs showed a devoted couple, untouched by scandal. But behind the lavish dinners and designer clothes, the truth was suffocating them both. Omar barely slept. He avoided mirrors, flinched at sudden noises, and kept his phone on silent, terrified of unexpected calls from the police. Layla, on the other hand, appeared calm. Her silence was heavy and deliberate, her every move calculated. It was as if she had erased what happened from her mind, locking it away behind her polished exterior. The Dubai police, however, hadn't forgotten Arnold Dela Cruz. The missing nurse's case had begun attracting quiet attention. Her co-workers were persistent, pushing investigators to keep searching. A detective named Captain Fard Mansour, known for his relentless work on high-profile cases, took a particular interest. Something about Arnold's disappearance didn't sit right with him. He reviewed security footage again and again, studying every frame. The gap between her entry into the building and Omar's next recorded appearance was too wide, too perfect, almost staged. When the police requested to inspect the El Rashid apartment again, Omar's reaction was immediate panic. He contacted his lawyer, insisting he had already cooperated. Layla calmly intervened, offering full access, even preparing tea for the officers during the visit. She seemed unbothered, but her eyes followed every step they took. The officers noticed the apartment looked newer than before. The carpets had been replaced, the furniture rearranged, and the faint smell of paint lingered. It looked less like a home and more like a set, flawless, but empty of life for still. Small things spoke volumes. The balcony floor had scratch marks near the railing, and there were faint signs that something heavy had been dragged. When questioned, Omar said construction workers had done minor repairs months ago. The explanation sounded rehearsed. The detectives didn't argue, but they noted every detail. When they checked the building's basement, a caretaker quietly mentioned seeing Omar's driver carry a large suitcase late one night, around the time Arnold vanished. The caretaker thought nothing of it then, but now his memory filled a crucial gap. Police tracked down the driver, Salim Noor, who worked for Omar for years. At first, he denied everything, claiming loyalty to his employer. But after several hours of questioning, his composure broke. He admitted that Omar had asked him to get rid of a bag of personal waste. He didn't look inside. He just did as told. The instructions were simple. Drive to an industrial zone outside the city and leave it in a dumpster near a deserted construction site. Salim said Omar seemed tense, shaking, and didn't speak the entire drive. Detectives searched that area days later. What they found shocked them. Buried near an abandoned storage yard was a half-burned suitcase. Inside were women's clothes, partially destroyed medical ID cards, and personal items identified as belonging to Arnold. The discovery turned the missing person case into a homicide investigation. Forensic tests confirmed traces of human blood and hair matching Arnold's DNA. The evidence pointed directly toward Omar. The police brought him in for questioning once more. This time, the confident businessman looked broken. He denied killing Arnold but admitted to helping dispose of her body. He claimed it was an accident, saying Arnold had become hysterical when he tried to end things. He said she slipped, hit her head, and died instantly. He panicked and called Layla, who helped him clean up the mess. It was a weak story, filled with gaps, but it was enough to implicate both of them. Layla, when summoned, maintained her composure. She told the officers she knew nothing about the affair or Arnold's death. She portrayed herself as the betrayed wife, horrified by her husband's actions. Her performance was flawless. Even Omar hesitated, unsure whether to expose her or protect her. Deep inside, he feared her more than the police. She had orchestrated everything so precisely that even now, he couldn't see where her manipulation ended and his guilt began. The investigation was now public knowledge. Newspapers wrote cautiously about the missing nurse linked to a prominent Emirati businessman. Social media buzzed with speculation, though the Al Rashid name kept major headlines at bay. Behind closed doors, powerful people tried to suppress the story, but Captain Mansour refused to let it fade. He believed Layla's calm exterior hid something monstrous. He didn't have proof yet, but he knew the mask of the perfect wife would soon crack, and when it did, the truth about what happened to Arnold Dela Cruz would shake Dubai's glittering elite to its core. When the trial finally began, the courtroom was packed with journalists, lawyers, and members of Dubai's high society. The case had become a symbol of everything the city tried to hide. Behind its gleaming skyline passion, betrayal, and cold-blooded murder, the evidence was overwhelming. Forensics tied Arnold's DNA to the apartment, to the suitcase, and to the carpet fibers found near the bed. Financial investigators discovered that a week before her disappearance, Omar had transferred a large sum of money to a new account under Arnold's name, money that vanished soon after. To the prosecution, it was a clear attempt to buy her silence before ending her life. Omar sat through the proceedings pale and defeated. His once proud demeanor was gone, replaced by visible exhaustion. He confessed partially, admitting to disposing of Arnold's body, but insisting her death was accidental. He said she had fallen during an argument, and panic had driven him to hide what happened. But the evidence told a darker story. Arnold hadn't simply fallen. The autopsy revealed traces of a sedative in her bloodstream, a drug only available through private medical suppliers. When confronted with that, Omar broke down. His story shifted again, this time pointing toward Layla. He claimed that Layla had forced him into silence, threatening to destroy his reputation and his family's business empire if he refused to cooperate. According to him, she had been the one who brought the vial of sedatives, the one who planned the meeting, and the one who ensured no trace of her involvement could be easily found. He said she was there when Arnold died, and that afterward, she directed every step: the cleanup, the burning of the clothes, and the disposal of the suitcase. His lawyer argued that Omar acted under duress, paralyzed by fear of his wife's power and influence. Layla sat calmly through every accusation, her face unreadable. When it was her turn to speak, she denied everything. She called Omar a coward, a liar, and a weak man trying to save himself by destroying her. Her tone never cracked, her words deliberate and controlled. She told the court she had no knowledge of the nurse or the affair until the day Omar was arrested. The judge watched her closely, but even he couldn't immediately tell if she was lying. Her confidence was unnerving. Then, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A forensic specialist re-examined the apartment and discovered microscopic fibers on the carpet that matched a limited edition designer scarf one Layla was seen wearing in photos posted on social media just a day before Arnold's disappearance. That evidence, combined with traces of her exclusive perfume found in the room, tore through her defense. It placed her directly at the scene. Confronted with this, her calm demeanor shattered for the first time. She went silent, her eyes cold and distant, realizing the walls were closing in. When the verdict was finally announced, the courtroom was silent. Omar al-Rashid was sentenced to 25 years in prison for his role in concealing the murder and tampering with evidence. Layla al-Rashid received a life sentence for premeditated murder. Her face didn't flinch when the words were read, as though she had expected this ending all along. Omar lowered his head, tears falling quietly, while Layla's gaze stayed fixed on the judge, expressionless, proud and defiant until the last moment. After the sentencing, media outlets flooded with details about the affair, the videos, and the calculated cruelty that followed. Arnold's family, thousands of miles away, wept as her story became international news. They had waited months for justice, and though it came, it brought no peace. They buried an empty coffin in her hometown, a symbolic gesture for a daughter whose remains were too damaged to bring home. In prison, Omar's mental state deteriorated quickly. He stopped eating, stopped speaking. He spent his days staring at the walls, haunted by the woman he claimed to love and the wife who turned his life into a cage. Layla, on the other hand, adapted to her new world with chilling grace. She kept to herself, quiet and composed, never showing remorse. To those who met her behind bars, she seemed more like a queen in exile than a criminal outside. Dubai moved on. The headlines faded, replaced by news stories of scandal and success. But among the hospital staff who once worked with Arnold, her memory lingered. They spoke of her kindness, her dreams, and her tragic fall into a world she never truly understood. Her story became a whispered warning among expatriate nurses, a reminder of how fragile safety can be when love crosses dangerous lines. In the end, Arnold de la Cruz's name lived on, not as the woman who loved a powerful man, but as the victim of his deceit and his wife's revenge. What began as a secret affair ended as a haunting crime that exposed the darkness beneath Dubai's glittering perfection, a story of power, obsession, and the deadly cost of forbidden love.